Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Thank you for coming and expressing some interest in Hyperworks for FEKO. Right, so this is mostly going to be geared towards pre-processing, geometry cleanup, meshing, everything that we need to do to get our model ready to either put back into CAD FEKO so we can run electromagnetic analysis as well. I'm going to be your host for this little session. My name is Blaze Cole. I've been at Altair for several years now, and I've always wanted to do this, just never have really had the chance to until now. So I'm glad that I can help. So we are going to start really from the basics, even as far as how to open up Hyperworks. So within your installation, you should have a large Altair folder with all of your information in it, depending on the version you're running. For this course, I'm going to be running the latest and greatest, what we have out here in late 2021, 2021.2. Yep. I'll open up this large folder, and you're going to notice there's a lot of stuff in here, right? We actually have a lot of products here at Altair. Even though you might just be focused on FEKO or even now Hyperworks, the way that our licensing structure works is you actually have access to all sorts of tools. So if you are in a smaller company or if you're in a real research and development area, and you need access to more tools, just keep in mind that the Altair license system has that for you. So you're looking for Altair Hyperworks, right? 2021. There's all sorts of different Hyperworks with different monikers at the end. We're just looking for plain old fashioned Hyperworks. Okay. So it'll go ahead and launch. It'll look something like this as soon as you get started. For some of us, we will have some licensing. So if that's not already set up on your machine, you're actually going to get a little pop-up box that looks like this. And actually my license expires tomorrow, so I better really get on that. But for a majority of us, you're going to sign on using this hosted on Altair 1. So you've spoken to us, you're interested in the product. And what we are doing is we are putting the license file on the cloud for you if that's something that you're interested in. So that's going to be maybe about 30% of people. And this would just be your username and password for signing into Altair 1, which is just kind of our support hub, right? So this is where you go to get support and answer questions and documentation and downloads. For the other majority of us, there's going to be a license server. And this is something that your IT would know up. By default, it's going to be 6200 at whatever your license server name is, right? So, your company has these licenses hosted on a server, and this could just be a real quick way to go ahead and do this. So you just ask your IT, hey, where's our Altair licenses? They'll tell you it's 6200 at the license server name, and you can just type it in there and hit activate. Okay. And for a very small majority of you, like myself, you're just going to have a standalone license on your computer. And that will just be some local file that you could point to. Okay. So I'm already activated, but just so you know, that's kind of how you can do this. More licensing can be found on the support page and by reaching out to Altair support. We do have some getting started videos. These are kind of nice, especially if you're brand new. You can click to continue. This will just take you to a web page with 10, 12 different videos. But we're going to be real specific today, so you don't need that. You're going to be guided by the expert himself into how to use Hyperworks for FEKO. So just a couple notes. Why is this class going to be important? So Hyperworks is a solver and CAD neutral preprocessor, right? So kind of as mentioned before, if you're working in a real innovative, fast-paced type of environment where you don't want to be nailed down to a single tool, this is a really great multi-purpose tool that will allow you to create solver decks for structural, electromagnetics, thermal, all sorts of different common solvers within the marketplace today in a single interface. You don't have to go and learn a new tool for a particular solver, right? You can just learn this common tool, and then at the end of the day, we'll just spit out the correct deck that you need. It's also CAD neutral. So once again, if you're working at maybe a vendor shop and you're getting in all different CADs, whether it's CATIA or Creo or Pro-E, or I don't even know if those exist anymore, we can read all that in, right? So we are really CAD neutral and solver neutral. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to kind of get into it. We're going to take a little tour around the interface for our first session. Then the subsequent sessions will be on meshing and some other different workflows that might be a little more specific to FEKO. Okay. So firstly, I want to import some geometry, right? Very common. You have been given some geometry from a designer, and now you need to get it set up for the electromagnetic analysis. I'm going to go to File, Import, and once again, you'll see all of the options here, right? So we're very, again, neutral in what we can absorb into this product. But for most of us, we're going to be looking at geometry, right? So import geometry models from a CAD system, and this can also be linked to a PLM. We won't get to that right now, but you can bring in models from Teamcenter and Windchill as well. So where are we going? We're going to HyperWorks for FEKO. So I have provided, and I will try to get a link wherever I post this, so that you have the models that we're working on. But I just have this Parasolid model, kind of easy to have, that I can kind of click on and hit open. Okay. So I'm just importing this. I have some options, import options, as far as maybe things like scaling, what units we'd like. There is some automatic cleanup type stuff in here, but some of what we want to do today is not automatic. I want to show you how to do that manually. And like I said, we can bring in PDM attributes and metadata as well. This can help. These can be used as tags to kind of automate processes. So while again, maybe a little out of the scope of a beginning introduction option, as you're working through this and you're starting to think to yourself, wow, I really wish there was some way that we could think about automating this or making my job easier, because engineers probably have the easiest job in the world. We can start to talk about some of that, but again, we won't cover that here. So I'll just bring this in. It's a single part, and we're going to be working on the next generation fighter plane. I'm just kidding. This is just some commercial. 732. Okay. So this is just going to be our general CAD that we're going to work on today. Okay. You'll notice I'm manipulating it. The model should be fairly easy to kind of intuit some of this. So scrolly wheel will zoom in and out. Right mouse button will pan. And pressing on the scrolly wheel, so using that as a button, will tumble your model. We will tumble about wherever your cursor is. So if you want to tumble about the tail here, just put your cursor towards the tail and it will tumble about the tail. We can tumble about the nose. Or if you just tumble in white space, it'll kind of go back to the middle. Okay. If you ever do get lost in your model, you have a large model and you somehow flew off on the screen, or it's extremely small, you can always hit F on your keyboard to fit the model back to your space. Okay. The last thing that I really want to cover within the first session is going to be some selection, something like, I want to start clicking on some stuff and doing things. So with that, we have when you first come into the product, it's going to be in what we call idle mode. So this is just kind of a generic mode that kind of references just the most common denominator, right? So for us, it would be like a single part. But maybe I want to be a little more specific. I maybe want to look at surfaces or lines or points, right? Different geometric entities, because that's really all I have in my model at this point. And you're going to see that I have this little drop down on the top left for different types of things that are in my model. So like I said, I have lines and surfaces, components and parts. These are just kind of groups of these things that make common parts. So I'm going to change this to surfaces. And let's just say for kind of grins, right, we want to just kind of select a surface, right? So I just left click on a surface, very much like you would in any normal computer product these days. And it gets added to my selection, right? If I'd like to increase my selection or append to it, I will hold Control like I would in a Microsoft product. So Control to add more. And as I hold Control, you actually see my cursor turns to a little plus button. So we do try to give you a visual cue of what we're trying to do. And then if I hold Shift, Shift is going to be deselect. So come back to that first original surface I selected. Okay. I can also drag a box. Okay, so with this selection, I can drag a box, and it will select all the appropriate entities, all the surfaces within that box. Okay. Once again, I can control to make another box. I can control to append to another box, and then once again, Shift will do the same. Okay. And then I can always just hit Escape once or twice to just clear out my selection. Okay. So really, all that we've talked about, we've imported the model, right? Another way to import models is just to drag and drop. Didn't really show that, but you're more than welcome to just come in here, take a model, any model. It could be any geometry, it could be anything, and just drag and drop it. And depending on its extension, we will figure out what to do with it, right? So if it's geometry, we'll understand. We'll show you, do you want to scale it? Do you want to do that? If you bring in a BDF file, we'll say, well, what solver is it? Is it NX Nastran? Is it MSC Nastran? We'll ask the appropriate questions if you just want to drag and drop into your modeling space as well. Okay. So we talked about importing, bringing geometry in, and we've talked about selection, right, and model manipulation. So being able to move your model around, zoom in, see some parts, and start selecting some items. So once again, changing to surfaces, lines, whatever you want to select. You'll also see there's hotkeys or underlines, so S would be for surfaces. Control to append, Shift to deselect, box select. Okay. So that's where we're going to end the first session. I like to keep these short for selection. And as we go on, we will start talking about some geometry cleanup, because as you can see, this airplane is not suited to fly quite yet. I mean, unless you're, well, maybe some aircraft manufacturers might think that's fine, but I'm not. So we'll fix the geometry, then we'll start talking meshing, we'll start talking some other things that are more important, right? And I'll see you in session 2.